Welcome to an edition of Boxing Info. I'm your host, The Islander, and this is going to be the results show and preview show. Results show week ending April the 17th. Preview show going through the weekend of the 23rd and the 24th. Let's get right to some of the results. In Argentina last Friday, WBO junior bantamweight 115-pound champion Omar Narvaez overcame a slow start against a promising Puerto Rican fighter named Cesar Seda, who from all accounts is going to be quite good someday. Looked like Seda had this fight early from the clips I saw and what I've read about it, and then Narvaez's experience started to take over and pull away in the end of this fight. 117, 110 twice, 115, 112. Somebody lost a point, I thought, for a low blow or whatnot to make the scoring kind of uneven like that, because really what it was, I don't know if it was 9 rounds to 3 and 7 rounds to 5 or something like that, but neither here nor there. Another win for Narvaez, who stays undefeated, 34-0-2 with 19 stoppages. Friday night fights. Ruslan Provodnikov scored an 8th round TKO over Ivan Popopka, in which he put Popopka down a couple of times and really rebounded well from his last loss. He's been on Friday night fights several times and looks like he's definitely back in shape, working with Buddy McGirt now and taking his time and not really shoring up his defense as well as most would like, but still doing well, pounding the body and all that good stuff. What was the other card here? Showtime card, which most of you are waiting to hear my opinion about. As you know, I picked one, Manuel-Lopez, to win big over Orlando Salido. I thought he was too slick and too well gifted for the crudeness of Salido, but let's point out a couple of things, and that is that over the past couple of years, after Lopez upset Ponce de Leon, and I'm speculating when I say this, I don't know this for certain, but I think what he saw was that to be a big star and to make money, he was following in the footsteps of his Puerto Rican counterparts, Felix Trinidad and Miguel Cotto, of being, straight ahead bombers, and even Wilfredo Gomez going back with that silly survey they did on Showtime with the greatest Puerto Rican fighters of all time, and they've got like Trinidad and then Cotto, and I'm sitting there like, well, Trinidad I can understand putting Cotto ahead of Wilfredo Gomez or Carlos Ortiz. I mean, it's the people that do these, that respond to these, don't know nothing about boxing or the history of boxing. They just know what's recent, what they've seen in their lifetime, and all this other kind of stuff. So I wouldn't take it too seriously. But with Juanma Lopez, I think that he, in his mind, he saw that you come forward, you make exciting fights, you bomb the guy out if you can. He was in the habit of doing that, and he was in the habit of getting caught while doing that. And with that said, he's been down in recent fights. He was hurt really bad against Rafael Marquez, and if it wasn't for the referee deducting a point away from him when he got hurt in that fight, he may have been stopped in the 4th round of that fight against Marquez. In this fight, he started off okay, and then slowly got dragged into a brawl in which it favored Salido. Now understand, Salido is no pushover. He went 12 decent, strong rounds with Yuriorkis Gamboa, and even put Gamboa down in the wild exchange in which Gamboa was teeing off on him and caught a right hand. Now, he also beat down Robert Guerrero pretty good at featherweight when Robert Guerrero had the IBF featherweight title, but was obviously, the decision was overturned to a no contest because he had tested positive for a banned substance. It wasn't all that serious. Just know that Robert Guerrero wants no part of him, or wanted no part of him, going forward. Before I actually start speculating about that, let me look that up, because one thing I wanted to do before I started taping this video was to look at Salido's record and take a look at how much time there was in between fights with Guerrero and his next opponent, because I know he was suspended. I just don't know how long. Here's Salido at the top of the featherweight rankings according to BoxRec. I don't understand how they have these rankings, because he lost, decidedly to Yuriorkis Gamboa. Cristobal Cruz, lost split decision. Robert Guerrero. This must not have been all that serious, because Salido tested positive for the steroid. Result changed to a no decision in the Nevada State Athletic Commission. It was basically, here's how bad he beat Robert Guerrero: 115-113, 118-110, and 117-111. Understand, the banned substance didn't take him over the top, or the ability to take Guerrero's punches, because Guerrero was a stinker. As far, we all know how he fights. He does well, but he's not going to keep somebody like Salido off of him for 12 rounds. And that fight was on November 4th of 2006, in which he took the featherweight title and had to basically vacate it right away. And he was back in the ring in September of 07, so you figure that's, what, 10 months? So he wasn't suspended a year. I don't know if he was suspended 6 months or not, but he went right to work in Illinois after that. So neither here nor there. In any event, this fight started turning in the 4th round when Salido started connecting on Lopez hard and engaged him into a brawl. Furthermore, in the 5th round, a wicked left, I think it was like 2 left hooks and a wicked, basically roundhouse overhand right hand, drilled Lopez to the canvas, basically on his backside, on his back. And the game was on at that point, because it was going to be a race against the clock whether Salido could get Lopez out of there, or Lopez could beat him off to hang on for the remainder of the fight. And Lopez had a very good 7th round, in which I gave him the 7th round. He was landing ferocious shots, but I think the fight had been gone out of him, and Salido just kept coming forward. And in the 8th round, Salido started connecting with combinations again. I don't think anything was as hard or as bad as it was in the 5th round or previous in the fight. I just think that, and I'm not sure what the speculation is with the referee. Avellino had made mention that the referee had lost money on a bet when Ponce de Leon was upset by Juan Ma, and the referee Ramirez stopped the fight. Roberto Ramirez Jr. stopped the fight a tad bit early. It was a similar stoppage to Juan Manuel Marquez against Michael Katsitas, but in my opinion, the thing is that Lopez was slowing down and Salido was picking up steam, and it wasn't going to get any better. All 3 judges had the fight even after 7 rounds, I guess, 66-66, which would lead me to believe 7 rounds. They would have that. I guess they would have that 4 rounds to 3, with the 1 round being a 10-8 round for Salido to basically even it up at 66-66, if I'm thinking right. So a real close fight, and I'd be asking for a rematch if I was Lopez, because there are rumors that he wasn't quite ready for this fight, maybe took it lightly, and was looking ahead to bigger things against Gamboa. Look, that fight still may happen. They both fight for top rank. For Salido, this is a second chance for him. We're going to talk more about second chances later, in which case, he has another, this is like the second or third chance in his career to do well. Word has it that the Top Rank's going to probably try to put him in with Yuriorkis Gamboa next to unify 3 of those belts in that division, because Gamboa's got the IBF belt he took from Salido. He's got the WBA belt that's been on, basically was put on the shelf when John was injured, and Chris John and his people are doing everything to avoid fighting Gamboa, and I don't blame them. And then, now the WBO belt is owned by Salido. So the only one that's out there is the WBC belt. And speaking of Chris John, he scored a unanimous decision over John-Yourdan in Indonesia, in Jakarta, in which he, I'll get you the scores on that. 117, 111, and 116, 112 twice. 9 rounds to 3, 8 rounds to 4 twice. He won this fight on experience and going away. The advantage that Chris John normally has over opponents, he did not have in this fight. I did not see footage of this fight. I just know that Chris John outworked him. Chris John was in his element, and from what I understand, he looked pretty good. Yourdan is not experienced enough to deal with a veteran like this. So hopefully Chris John can come back this side of the Pacific and start entering into this unification to do away once and for all with this interim WBA or WBA Junior Champion and WBA Grand Champion. You know, that's the thing that killed me about the WBA. They could have 3 champions in one division, and they, you know, come forward and say this is, you know, Chris John's the Grand Champion or the Master Champion. That's usually reserved for guys who have unified other titles with the WBA title, so that they can, you know, they're still getting sanctioning fees, and somebody else can have the interim title to fight that guy. It's like insane. Okay, next result. Vicious Victor Ortiz scoring a well-deserved unanimous decision over Andre Berto. There's a tale of many stories in this fight. One of them is redemption for Victor Ortiz, and I knew just by looking at him coming into the ring that he had a different focus I had never seen before. And the difference in this focus, the performance itself reminded me much like, if those of you who are a little bit older remember a guy named Stevie Little Man Cruz from Fort Worth, Texas, who won the WBA featherweight title in a huge upset over Barry McGuigan. Stevie Cruz, who was cruising right along on ESPN, beating guys here and there, and all of a sudden he ran into this slugger named Lenny Valdez, very similar to Marcos Maidana, and Lenny Valdez blew out Stevie Cruz in 1 round. Cruz picked himself up, dusted himself off, and when the right opportunity came, Barry McGuigan and Showtime, which is where the fight was on, came calling. And it was just thought to be a mere formality for Barry McGuigan to get through Stevie Cruz, to knock him out, and then go on to unification with Azuma Nelson back in 1986. Well, we all know what happened. Cruz held his ground, withstood the McGuigan storm, scored a knockdown on McGuigan in the 10th round and 2 more in the 15th round to pull out the fight. And the look on Victor Ortiz's face and his demeanor coming into the ring, when he was in the ring, waiting for the fight to start, was very similar to Stevie Cruz. They both went from being a can't-miss prospect to being somebody who was counted out and an afterthought. And like I've told you before, this is one of the biggest things that motivates me, and it motivated them. And I knew from the first round, I had doubts in the middle rounds, but I knew in the first round that this was a different Victor Ortiz. There was no smiling, no clowning around, no, you know, none of this flashy stuff that he's shown in the. He never clowned around, but no flashy stuff that he showed in the past. This was a very, very, very serious individual. Andre Berto was his old self. I think he just thought this was going to be a walk in the park. He, you know, took some punches early on. You know, first round, I'm really surprised, and I think that with a little more experience, Victor Ortiz in the future would have gotten Andre Berto out in the first round, because I think that he really didn't realize how hurt he had Berto, and really should have rushed him with all guns a-blazing in the first round. The first knockdown, this is the first time, those of you that know, I should have let you know that HBO was given, at least to DirecTV people, free last weekend, and maybe to other people, or other cable subscribers or dish subscribers. And it was nice to actually watch this fight on TV as opposed to on the internet. And I've been away from the HBO guys calling that fight, and I have to give it to them. They were right on the money about several things, but understand they've got a stake in Victor Ortiz because he's promoted by who? Golden Showers Promotions. So, you know, as they were calling this fight both ways, because they've got a stake in Andre Berto too, they're the ones who have been protecting him and coddling him along. I thought it was called very fairly, and I agreed with them that the first, what was the rule of slip, was a knockdown in the first round, and the second knockdown was a real hard knockdown in which Berto caught an uppercut and was catching clean punches. Now understand that Ortiz needs to shore up his defense, because the knockdown he suffered in the second round, where Berto clipped him with a straight right hand straight through the guard when he was rushing in a straight line at Berto, and he had to catch his balance and touch the glove to the deck. Nothing but his feet and his glove touched the canvas. Was almost like a microcosm of all of Andre Berto's career, where he's been in trouble before, and yet a guy getting reckless coming after him is what has allowed him to escape. And you know, he catches guys with, you know, in crazy positions wide open, like in the 6th round, where Ortiz was attacking him again, and they were both about to throw right hands. Ortiz was winding up with a right hook, and Berto came with a roundhouse right hand and caught him on the chin and knocked him down hard. And at that point in time, I thought Ortiz was in big trouble. But Ortiz, again, with the focus and the determination, kept his cool, maintained his poise, and gave ground, and allowed to see what Berto had coming after him. And I thought for sure Berto had nothing else to do but to go for the knockout, because he was getting outpointed, you know, like crazy in that fight. As a matter of fact, the round he scored the knockdown in, I wouldn't have even given him that round 10-8, because Ortiz was doing all the work in that round. Sure enough, as Berto started getting wild, because something was taken out of him in that 1st round, and he was never the same, he started swinging for the fences, and almost out of a squared stance, Ortiz cracked him with what looked like a left hook, not a left cross, and Berto went down harder than Ortiz did earlier in the round. And Berto is lucky the round was almost over when that happened, because Ortiz jumped on him, and there was just no time left to follow up on that. And from there, the fight just got away from Berto. He did have some moments in the fight, but Ortiz just outworked him and outshined him and deserved this fight going away. I mean, it was more, this fight, the judges' scores were 115-110, which is really, you got to figure you give Ortiz, take another point away from Berto in the 1st round for another knockdown. It's 115-109. That bogus call for hitting behind the head would make it 116-109. To me, he easily won this fight by 7 or 8 points going away, 9 rounds to 3, in my opinion. 114-112 and 114-111, a lot closer. The fight wasn't as close as that. Let's put it this way. They're talking about a rematch. I don't know what HBO is talking about. If either one of these two guys are in the Mayweather-Pacquiao sweepstakes, they both get absolutely annihilated. And sometimes I question why they even have Jim Lampley on the air, because here's a perfect example. He had some very good comments, and I'll point to them in a second, but then he asked Emmanuel Stewart, well, Emmanuel Stewart, we start off the night asking the question, will Andre Berto be ready for the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather sweepstakes if he wins this fight? Now we turn our attention to Victor Ortiz. Emmanuel, is Victor Ortiz ready for the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather sweepstakes? And what does Emmanuel Stewart say? Jim, I think he is. You know, let's size this up for a second. Okay, Victor Ortiz fights out of the southpaw stance. I've gone back and watched really old Manny Pacquiao fights where he's fighting over in the Philippines, over in Japan, and he's fighting against other southpaws. He kills southpaws worse than he kills conventional fighters. Trust me on this. And in modern times, look at the David Diaz fight. He was way more accurate, way more deadly, did way more damage in that fight, in every round of that fight. The reason? Generally speaking, okay, righties have trouble with southpaws. Generally speaking, southpaws do real well against conventional fighters. Southpaws, generally speaking, have trouble against other southpaws, and the reason is they don't see them as often, and the power hand, the left hand, is about 12 inches to 18 inches closer to the target, because their lead foots are not negating each other. They're basically in the orthodox stance for themselves, and it moves their power hand closer. It'd be like two righties fighting each other. Their right hand is a lot closer than it would be if they were fighting a southpaw. The same thing with a southpaw. The left hand is closer, and this throws off most southpaws, who are especially boxers, because they know the danger of this. With Manny Pacquiao, it's a huge advantage for him to have his left hand that much closer to the target. And he would absolutely annihilate Victor Ortiz. Not to the same effect that he did against David Diaz, but along those similar lines. Ortiz's best chance is against Mayweather, because Mayweather doesn't like being pressured in certain ways from certain angles by guys who hit like Ortiz. Case in point, the Zab Judah fight, the Chop Chop Corley fight, and even little glimpses in the Sean Bay Mitchell fight. Mayweather beats all the southpaws, but he has moments of rough spots in him, in which he's been rocked and hurt before. And Ortiz, I think, matches up better against Mayweather in a losing effort than he does against Pacquiao. Berto, to me, was exposed in this fight. He's been exposed before by lefties. Even Cosme Rivera, who's a righty and turned lefty in that fight and knocked him down with a left uppercut, did so while he caught him wide open. And the same thing happened against Luis Collazo, and even for a moment or two in the fight against Carlos Quintana, he was tagged hard. So where does he go from here? He's young, he's strong, they shore up his defense and his way of doing things. He'll be a force again. Somebody made mention, I think it was Hitman or somebody on my channel about, or no, it was Avellino, where's Clotty? There's the perfect fight to be made. Next up, did I cover all three of these fights? Chris John, Victor Ortiz. Oh, the Amir Khan fight. As forgettable as that was. There's the difference, folks, right there, going eons back, decades, going back decades. The World Championship level, the European level. And this gap is bigger than it looks, trust me. And it showed in this fight. I don't know what McCloskey was expecting to do. Catch Khan with a right hook coming out of a clinch like he's done with other fighters before. I'm just, you know, just asking and just wondering. Bear with me 1 second here. Never mind. Moving right along to this. Anyway, Khan was winning this fight going away. He was hurting McCloskey in the 6th round. He was going to stop him eventually. It's just that simple. Now we look forward to Khan against our good buddy Timothy Bradley in a fight that's a 50-50 fight, and I personally like Bradley's chances in this fight. He knows how to get inside. He knows how to basically punch at the right distance, something Khan's other opponents like Maidana didn't know how to do. And speaking of which, that fight with Morales was even more brutal now that I got to watch it with HBO calling because they replayed it last weekend. That left hook that Morales landed in the 6th round on Maidana, you know, I've never seen him hurt a guy real bad with a left hook before. It's always been his right hand. I think, in watching that again, that if his eye was not damaged from the 1st round onward, he would have won that fight and maybe taken Maidana out. And Dirk Diggler made mention that that maybe this was a case of Maidana being exposed for not being really as good as he is, and I tend to agree with this. I think that he's dangerous in a sense, but, you know, against somebody who technically knows what to do, we're going to see this pattern repeated over and over again that Khan repeated, Morales repeated. I didn't see Khan hurt Maidana to the head like Morales did. I mean, it was like, I thought it was a very, very surprising fight. Something that Larry Merchant, bringing up the fact that Victor Ortiz was robbed of the knockdown in the 1st round, right on, straight on, and the bull crap about the referee. And there's something in the background. Oh, it's my jacket. I'm saying, what the heck is that white thing? Never mind. With the point deduction for hitting behind the head. When a guy is in a clinch and he turns his head away and gets hit in the back of the head, it's the guy turning his head's fault. I mean, put your head down. Let him hit you on top of the head so he breaks his hand. I mean, don't give him the back of your head. But they like doing that. And the other thing, too, is the referee was one-sided because how many times did he let Berto was doing nothing but holding in the middle of the fight. The second, you know, who do you call it, would engage him, they get one, you know, Ortiz would engage him to get 1-2 punches off, and Berto's holding. And he never, you know, he won them once or twice, never sternly. I mean, so I give it to both Merchant. I forgot what it was that Lampley brought up that I thought was a very good point I was going to repeat. I guess it was overshadowed by the idiocracy of throwing Ortiz and Berto in with Pacquiao and Mayweather. Pretty much that's what unseated that. Let's go to the schedule, and this weekend has a very important schedule set of fights coming up with the bantamweight tournament winding down. Are we going to bring this up or not? That's great. In any event, I was going to say cover a couple, but anyway, on Showtime, the end of the bantamweight tournament, in the I should say the consolation match, Darchinyan taking on Yanni Perez, is a toss-up fight. I tend to think that give Darchinyan the edge here, and I'll tell you why. I think Perez looked like he was slowing up quite a bit in that fight with Agbeko-Mares. I'm surprised Mares wasn't able to get him out of there, because it looked like Mares was on the verge in the later rounds of getting him out of there. And he did not look himself in the last fight against Agbeko. And I think something's been taken out of him in his last 3 fights, especially the battle he ensued in order to get the title away from Agbeko, to hold on to it by the skin of his teeth against Mares, and then to try to defend it against Agbeko, who brought out a different game plan, of a passive-aggressive plan that actually had Perez reaching for him, and he was doing all the scoring. Agbeko was. So I'm going to take Darchinyan here, and I think that only because I don't think Perez is going to be able to hurt him or keep him off, and I think that Darchinyan, a little smarter for his age, is going to do what he needs to do to win this fight. I know I'm taking a chance, but I just got this gut feeling about this. In the fight with the main event, which is Agbeko defending his title against Mares, I'm leaning towards Mares in this fight. I think that the reason is I think he's better skilled all around, although he's not as experienced in the firefight as Agbeko is. The thing is, if Agbeko doesn't fight like he did against Luis Perez and against Yanni Perez the first time around, and he gets into a thinking match like he did against Yanni Perez in the rematch, not good enough to do that against Mares. Mares is going to take this fight by a comfortable decision. I don't see a knockout in this fight either way, unless Agbeko puts a real hard hurting on Mares. But I think Mares is big and strong and very durable for this weight class. I see Mares basically using his boxing puncher style like he did against Yanni Perez, and like the adjustments he showed against Darchinyan, which were severe, because he was in trouble early in that fight, and he found a way of getting through. I'm going with Mares by a wide decision, by a comfortable decision in this fight. That's going to do it for this edition of Boxing Info. Stay with me. I'll be back with the results next week.